Hey everyone, it's Dr. Fields. So we talked in the past about the tendency for so many of us to engage in all or nothing thinking. And I don't know why it seems to be so common to people with um, a psychological dependency issue or an addiction or a compulsion, but I can tell you it is super, super common. And I certainly can speculate to some possible reasons why, but to be honest, it is what it is, and many of us do have this tendency, and it just really, really, really needs to be addressed. The last time I spoke about this, I spoke about it in relation to binging, or really just throwing caution to the wind and saying, forget this, I'm going off my food plan or my weight loss plan or what have you. You know, if we feel like we've broken a rule or we're doing something we shouldn't be because it's not part of our food plan, and we jump to this conclusion that, oh, I ate, this extra food, I had this snack when I'm not supposed to, so therefore screw it. Number one, you should never have rules. It should always be guidelines, and guidelines are flexible, and it's totally okay to not be within those guidelines all the time. So I really want to expand this to like other ideas, because when it comes to like weight loss, because I think it's just super, super important. When you are on a plan, it's just that. It's a plan. It doesn't mean you have to follow it 100%. And it's okay from time to time if you don't follow it. And in fact, it's much more okay to be completely off the plan for a short period of time, but then get yourself right back on it. Dealing with disappointment, dealing with departures from a certain path that we've set forth, that is the most important step in trying to be successful on our plans. And this is not for just people trying to lose weight. This is for people that are trying to accomplish anything in life. Like, if you think of some of the most successful people, the difference between them and people that are not so successful, and I'm talking about people just in general, like let's just talk about people who are super successful financially, right? What differentiates them from other people that are not nearly as financially successful? It's how they deal with failure. It's how they deal with disappointment. They don't quit. They are persistent. If something doesn't work out the way that they intended it to, then they go back to the drawing board, so to speak, and they problem solve. But they don't give up. If they depart from their plan, then they get back to their plan. They don't say the heck with it. People with dependency issues, addictions, compulsions have such a common pattern of saying F it. And I tell this to my patients all the time. When I identify that that's what's going on, I said, you just had a case of the F-its. And the F-its is, I feel disappointed that I did this, and even though it's like this small departure from my plan or from my goal path, I feel like I totally failed 100%, and therefore the hell with it, right? So now that leads them open to totally going back to their addiction in full force. Or if we're talking about people with food dependency issues, binging, etc., etc. Again, I haven't quite figured out why this thinking is so common to people with dependency issues, and maybe this is something I'm going to have to give more thought to and have a video about it at a later time. But Listen, it is what it is. This is something that's super common to people with dependency issues. And it's really so important. That's why I'm having another video about it, because it really does separate people that are successful in whatever from people who are not successful or are less successful. Whether you're talking about financial success, career success, relationship success, weight loss success, right? It really comes down to persistence and being able to deal with disappointment and failure. And failure, of course, a lot of times is our perception. It sounds like a really strong, harsh word. If you depart from your food plan a little bit, it's not a failure, right? But if you think it's a failure, then it's a failure. So, even like really looking at that word failure, like I failed, I put out a video a couple days ago about neurolinguistics and the power of language, right? So like, let's stop using that word. Like, can we come up with a different word? You've heard me mention this word several times during this video. I think that's a perfect substitute. It's a departure. It's exactly what it is. I've departed for a period of time from my weight loss plan or my goal path. This is so, so important. So let's say you start a weight loss program, you have a food plan and an exercise program, and everything's working. You're losing weight. It's a plan you can stick with. The two main factors that I always say are the most important whenever you make a plan. Is it something I can stick with, and does it work? So everything's working so well. It's a month later, you're down 10 pounds, and all of a sudden, unfortunately, in some way or the other, you get injured. Whether or not it's from the actual exercise plan you created, or it's an injury that you sustained in some other area in your life, right? At that point, there's kind of like a crossroads, right? So like, what do you do with that? Do you say, F it? That's it. I injured myself. Now I'm not going to be able to do this exercise plan anymore. Without the exercise plan, the caloric deficit is not going to be that great. And so maybe I'm not going to really lose as much weight as I was. And I still have a long way to go. So F it. I'm done. No more exercising. Screw it. I'm going back to eating whatever I want. And that is not how successful people deal with temporary derailments from their plan. What they do in this situation, and this is exactly what separates them from you, what they do is they problem solve. They say, there's a problem that just happened. I cannot engage in my exercise plan to the degree that I was. How can I work around this injury? What can I do? Can I look to my food plan to cut out some other calories? Can I find a different way of exercising to burn calories? What can I do here to keep the progress going? Or can I have a mental shift to say like, yeah, it was great. I was losing 2 pounds a week every week. This plan worked wonderfully. Now I don't have the exercise part of the equation. Okay, so we may only lose 1 pound a week. Well, what's wrong with that? You're still making progress. This is what separates people who are successful in any endeavor we're talking about in life from those who are not. Because one thing that is absolutely certain is crap is going to happen. Curveballs are going to be thrown at us, and we are going to be derailed from plans, especially when we're talking about long-term plans. If we're on a plan for whatever, right, to reach a certain goal in a week, I'm not talking about weight loss, I'm just any plan, right? My plan is to have this great Christmas party. So it's 2 weeks down the road, and I'm going to do this, and that. The chances of being derailed for a short-term plan that only takes 2 weeks for something not so great happening to derail us is not that high. The probability is not that high, but it can still happen. It can definitely still happen, right? Many of times you plan things 2 weeks in advance and something came along to derail you, so you know it can happen. Well, if you're on a plan that's supposed to be a year long, 6 months long, 8 months long, to lose a certain amount of weight, a significant amount of weight, well, you better believe that curveballs are going to happen. You better believe that things are going to try to derail you. So, being in that mindset to first and foremost not let it derail you if you can, and if it does derail you in the sense that you have no control over it, talking about like a physical injury that derails you from your exercise program, how do you kind of regroup, refocus, and problem solve and say, okay, this is what I'm going to do? Problem solving and persistence are two key factors of successful people. I want to emphasize that because it's so important. Persistence and problem solving are super, super important because curveballs and unexpected life events are going to happen, and the probability that they're going to happen will increase the longer you have your plan in place or the more far out your goals are. It is essential to be able to stick to your goals and get back on track and figure out how to get back on track so that you keep making progress. In whatever endeavor that you have in life, this is how you become successful. This is how you ultimately become successful. This is Dr. Fields, and I'll have much more to say on this topic at a later time.